Welcome to Asian Horror and Crime. Most people see Asia for its bright lights and ancient traditions. But if you look closer, in the places most people avoid, there are stories. Stories of things that shouldn't exist, and people who've done things you won't believe. Tonight, we're going to the dark side of the continent, so, dim the lights, check under your bed, and maybe don't look out your window. Because tonight, we're diving deep into the grim tapestry of Asian horror and crime. Stay scared, folks. The case of the missing Sabong stands as one of the darkest and most highly organized criminal mysteries in the Philippines, a case defined by a mass wave of forced disappearances. While it centers on the vanishing of dozens of individuals tied to the world of cockfighting, or e-Sabong, this is no ordinary missing persons case. It is a systematic phenomenon involving a multi-billion peso gambling industry, shadowy syndicates, and alleged involvement from the authorities. Initially, reports were isolated, covering only a few individuals missing from a single location. However, a Philippine Senate investigation eventually uncovered a much more staggering reality: 34 people were officially declared missing. The wave of disappearances occurred with terrifying intensity over the course of a year, reaching its peak between January and March 2022. The targets weren't just the big players. The victims spanned the entire spectrum of the cockfighting ecosystem, from high-level e-Sabong agents and wealthy rooster owners to ordinary spectators, poultry handlers known as mananari, and even the drivers who were simply tasked with transporting participants to the arenas. The disappearances were far from random. They were highly concentrated within 3 major arenas managed by high-profile operators. First, Manila Arena, Sta Ana, Manila. On January 13, 2022, a chilling event took place. In a single day, 10 individuals vanished after attending a tournament at this venue. Eyewitnesses reported seeing several men being forcibly ushered into unmarked white vans outside the arena by armed individuals who appeared to be either law enforcement or private security contractors. Second, New Laguna Cockpit Arena, Binyaon, Laguna. Between late 2021 and early 2022, disappearances occurred here in multiple waves. Approximately 10 people were reported missing from this location alone. The method used was consistent: targets were intercepted just as they were attempting to leave the arena's parking facilities. Third, Lipa Cockpit Arena, Batangas. In January 2022, an entire group of 6 people vanished simultaneously after competing at this venue. Like the others, they simply disappeared into thin air, leaving their families with no answers and only empty vehicles as clues. Perhaps the most disturbing detail of this timeline is the consistency of the methods used in every abduction. These were not random acts of violence, they were coordinated, military-style operations. The surveillance. It is believed the perpetrators operated from a predetermined target list. They would monitor the movements of their victims inside the arenas using CCTV feeds or local informants, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The fake raids. In some instances, the syndicates executed what appeared to be staged raids. A prime example is the case of Ricardo Lasco. Intruders entered his home posing as police officers conducting an official operation, complete with tactical vests, firearms, and even fraudulent warrants to create an illusion of legality. Digital erasure. The perpetrators were also methodical in covering their tracks. Almost immediately after each abduction, the victims' mobile devices were powered down simultaneously. This ensured that their final locations could not be traced through GPS signals or cellular tower data, effectively wiping them off the digital map. The phenomenon of e-Sabong serves as the primary catalyst behind the tragic disappearance of the 34 Sabongeros. The shift from physical arenas to a digital format created a massive gambling ecosystem, one that generated astronomical sums of money but operated with very little oversight. While this industry became a financial titan, it also acted as a magnet for fraudulent activity. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, cockfighting was a social, face-to-face activity held in local pits. However, the nationwide lockdowns changed everything, forcing a rapid evolution of the sport. With physical arenas banned from operating, major operators pivoted to high-definition live streaming platforms. It was, in essence, a forced digitalization of a centuries-old tradition. 24/7 accessibility. This shift removed all geographical barriers. e-Sabong allowed anyone to place bets from their mobile phones at any time of day, without ever stepping foot in an arena. As a result, the player base exploded from a few thousand to several million, turning the sport into a digital gold mine. e-Sabong had evolved far beyond a traditional pastime, it had become a massive financial technology industry. The revenue involved was truly astronomical. During a Senate hearing, Atong, the owner of Lucky 8 Star Quest, one of the industry's largest operators, testified that his company could generate a betting turnover of up to 3 billion pesos per month. To put that into perspective, that is roughly $60 million flowing through the system every 30 days. Initially, the Philippine government, through its gambling regulatory body, PAGCOR, fully supported the rise of e-Sabong. They viewed it as a vital source of national revenue at a time when the economy was struggling due to the global pandemic. The industry wasn't just a game, it was a cornerstone of the nation's financial recovery plan. In the e-Sabong system, spectators only see what the camera allows them to see. This digital distance created a massive loophole for manipulation and fraud. First, video piracy syndicates. Illicit groups began hijacking live video signals to broadcast them on unauthorized gambling sites, bypassing official operators and draining revenue from the legitimate system. Second, sabotaging the roosters. To guarantee massive payouts, certain individuals were accused of rigging the matches. This involved injecting roosters with sedatives to weaken them or intentionally causing their own birds to lose, allowing syndicates to collect massive profits from bets placed on the opposing side. Third, the alleged motive for the abductions. Investigators believe this is where the mystery turns dark. A majority of the 34 missing individuals were reportedly suspected by major operators or powerful syndicates of being game fixers. In an industry where trust is the only currency, these individuals were viewed as threats to the entire financial system. It is alleged that their disappearance was a calculated move to protect the house's interests. The explosive growth of e-Sabong far outpaced the development of legal safeguards. This regulatory vacuum allowed a dangerous culture to thrive under the radar of the law. Because of its extreme accessibility, the platform fueled a wave of mass addiction. Everyone from low-income workers to high-ranking security personnel found themselves trapped in a cycle of gambling, leading to extreme debt and a breakdown in social order. In a shadow industry where trillions of pesos are at stake, disputes are rarely settled in a courtroom. Instead, justice is often meted out through a dark, cleansing process. It is alleged that private security teams or paid contractors were utilized to neutralize suspected game fixers, serving as a brutal deterrent to anyone else thinking of cheating the system. If traditional cockfighting was a local business, e-Sabong was a colossal money-making engine. This massive economic interest explains why the disappearances were carried out with such chilling, professional precision. There was simply too much money at stake to leave anything to chance. The alleged involvement of members of the Philippine National Police, PNP, is perhaps the most controversial aspect of the missing Sabongeros mystery. This revelation shifted public perception from a mere war between syndicates to a massive human rights scandal involving those sworn to uphold the law. The disappearance of Ricardo Lasco served as the skeleton key that unlocked the pattern of official complicity. Lasco, a prominent e-Sabong master agent, was taken from his home in San Pablo City in August 2021. Eyewitnesses, specifically the victim's family, testified that approximately 10 armed men stormed their residence, claiming to be conducting an authorized police raid. By 2023, the Philippine courts issued arrest warrants for 3 police officers from the Laguna Police Intelligence Unit after witnesses positively identified them. These individuals didn't just take Losco, they allegedly looted the victim's home of valuables before vanishing into the night. This detail suggests that the operation was not just about silencing a target, but also about illicit gain. Many of the families reported that the abductions took place in parking lots or directly in front of the heavily guarded gates of the cockfighting arenas. This led investigators to a disturbing conclusion: the perpetrators had unhindered access. The use of unmarked white vans, vehicles with no license plates that could move freely in and out of VIP sections or restricted zones, suggests a high level of coordination with internal security or authorities holding legal jurisdiction. Furthermore, the tactical precision displayed during these incidents, neutralizing targets quickly, silently, and with extreme organization, strongly suggests that the operatives possessed specialized training consistent with military or law enforcement personnel. For months, the cries for help from the victims' families were met with silence or dismissiveness at the local level. Some local police stations initially brushed off the reports, suggesting the men had simply gone into hiding due to gambling debts. This clear reluctance to act immediately raised suspicions of a deeper conspiracy, but the most glaring evidence of a cover-up occurred at the Manila Arena. Vital CCTV footage, which could have been used to track the kidnappers' vehicles, was reported as missing or erased when requested by central investigators. This loss of crucial evidence suggests a deliberate attempt to scrub the trail by individuals with high-level access to the arena's security systems. A disturbing theory has emerged suggesting that these rogue elements may have functioned as a specialized enforcement squad hired by major e-Sabong operators. It is alleged that certain officers held a dual role, officially serving the public while privately being contracted to protect the interests of the massive gambling industry. Their mission, according to investigators, was to handle anyone caught or even suspected of manipulating the digital betting system, such as those allegedly using illicit software to tamper with live match broadcasts. In this shadow economy, these operatives became the judge, jury, and enforcer for a multi-billion peso empire. The fate of the 34 Sabongeros remains a haunting mystery, leaving an open wound for the families they left behind. While they are officially classified as missing persons, the findings of the ongoing investigation paint a deeply unsettling picture. Even as the years pass since their disappearance, not a single remains has been recovered. This creates a massive forensic challenge. Without the corpus delicti, the physical body or undeniable proof of death, authorities find it difficult to pursue homicide charges. Consequently, the current legal filings are largely restricted to kidnapping and serious illegal detention. Darker theories have emerged regarding how the trail went cold. Investigators suspect that the victims may have been relocated to extremely remote areas or that their remains were systematically destroyed, potentially through the use of chemical agents or unauthorized cremation, to ensure that no DNA evidence would ever be found. In this chilling scenario, the silence is not an accident, it is the final part of a professional plan to erase these men from existence. Data from cellular service providers presented during the Senate hearings revealed a chilling pattern in the victims' final moments. The mobile devices of victims within the same group, such as the 10 men from the Manila Arena, went offline simultaneously. Within minutes of their reported abduction, every single signal vanished at once. Since that exact moment, there has been no banking activity, no social media logins, and zero attempts to contact loved ones. This lack of a digital footprint reinforces the theory that the victims were immediately neutralized and their communication tools destroyed by highly professional operatives. The uncertain fate of the 34 men has left their families in a state of ambiguous loss, a grief that has no closure and no end. Many of the missing were the sole breadwinners for their households. Their wives and children haven't just lost a family member, they have been thrust into a desperate struggle for survival and extreme financial hardship. The nightmare didn't end with the disappearances. Several families have reported being visited by unidentified individuals who warned them to stop speaking to the media or to drop their legal complaints if they wanted to remain safe. For these families, the search for the truth is not just a battle for justice, it is a struggle against a shadow that continues to haunt them. While the fate of most victims remains shrouded in darkness, the case of Ricardo Lasco provides a singular glimmer of hope for the pursuit of justice. Because Lasco's family witnessed the abduction firsthand, their courageous testimony became the only evidence strong enough to bring rogue officers to court. However, even under the weight of legal proceedings, the accused officers have maintained a wall of silence, refusing to disclose Lasco's location or his ultimate fate. The "no body, no case" strategy. Informally, security authorities in the Philippines view these disappearances as a coordinated mass purge carried out by organized syndicates. The systematic disposal of remains is believed to be part of a cold, calculated strategy known as "no body, no case." This is a classic criminal tactic used to exploit legal loopholes and avoid the most severe charges. Today, the families of the victims continue to hold protests, their voices echoing in a desperate demand for justice. Yet, a cloud of fear hangs over the investigation. Many potential witnesses remain silent, terrified by credible threats against their lives. For these families, the battle is not just against an industry, but against a system of silence that refuses to break. The turning point that led to the total shutdown of e-Sabong was a dramatic process, a collision of public outcry, high-level legislative investigations, and a severe economic dilemma for the Philippine government. The pressure reached a breaking point when the Philippine Senate, led by the Committee on Games and Amusements, began summoning the industry's most powerful operators. The most iconic moment of the inquiry was the public interrogation of Charlie Atong, the owner of Lucky 8 Star Quest. While he categorically denied any involvement in the disappearances, his testimony regarding the industry's staggering monthly turnover, reaching into the billions of pesos, shocked the nation. It exposed the sheer magnitude of power this industry wielded over the country. By March 2022, the gravity of the situation became undeniable. 23 senators signed a resolution formally urging the suspension of all e-Sabong operations. Their argument was clear: no amount of tax revenue could justify the systematic loss of human life. Initially, President Rodrigo Duterte was extremely reluctant to shut down e-Sabong, primarily due to a heavy budgetary dependence. Duterte stated that the nation desperately needed the revenue generated by the industry, approximately 640 million pesos per month, to fill the massive budget deficit caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. However, his stance eventually shifted. After receiving in-depth intelligence reports detailing the collapse of social order, including shocking accounts of police officers pawning their service firearms or committing robberies to settle e-Sabong debts, Duterte finally conceded that the situation had spiraled out of control. On May 3, 2022, during a national address, President Duterte officially ordered the total cessation of e-Sabong. The state regulator, the Philippine Amusement and Gaming Corporation, was instructed to immediately revoke the operating licenses of the 7 major authorized e-Sabong operators. While the ban was a major victory for the victims' families, it came with a side effect. The shutdown didn't eliminate the gambling culture entirely. Instead, it pushed the activity back underground, into illegal arenas that are far more difficult for the government to monitor or regulate. The shutdown of e-Sabong coincided with a critical turning point in the nation's history, the transition of power during the 2022 presidential elections. The case of the missing Sabungeros quickly evolved into a litmus test for the judicial system under the incoming administration of Ferdinand Marcos Jr. During the campaign, the promise to locate the victims and bring those responsible to light was a powerful talking point. However, years later, the families of the missing remained skeptical. Despite the high-level political rhetoric, they feel the progress of the investigation has reached a standstill, leaving their cries for justice unanswered by the very system that promised them a resolution. The ripples of the missing Sabungeros case extended far beyond the criminal underworld, shaking the very foundations of Philippine society and its political landscape. This tragedy has become a grim symbol of the judicial system's struggle against powerful gambling syndicates. Despite the systematic disappearance of dozens of citizens, the wheels of justice have turned with agonizing slowness. The majority of the 34 victims were men in the prime of their lives, serving as the primary breadwinners for their households. Their sudden absence thrust dozens of families into instant poverty, leaving wives to fend for themselves and forcing many children to abandon their education. Before its eventual ban, e-Sabong had penetrated every layer of society. The most visible social scar was a wave of mass addiction that fueled a rise in domestic disputes, theft, and even tragic cases of self-harm, as many players found themselves trapped in a cycle of debt from predatory online lending apps used to fund their bets. Public opinion remains deeply fractured. While many offer their sympathy, others have cast a shadow of negative stigma over the victims, suggesting they brought this upon themselves due to their involvement in the high-stakes gambling world and the allegations of game fixing that allegedly triggered the purge. The fallout from the missing Sabungeros case has transcended the criminal courts, triggering a profound crisis within the nation's political institutions. The alleged involvement of police officers in the abduction of Ricardo Lasco has reignited public trauma regarding special units within the force. It raised fears that these units could be weaponized for private interests or syndicates, drawing chilling parallels to past controversies surrounding extrajudicial activities. The case sparked a fierce debate within the government. On one side were the pragmatists, who prioritized gambling taxes for post-pandemic economic recovery, on the other were those advocating for human rights and moral accountability. This conflict forced a national reevaluation of the government's dependence on the gambling sector for its budget. The immense pressure from this case pushed the Senate to demand stricter regulations over PAGCOR, the state's gambling regulator. There is now a powerful movement for digital gambling platforms to maintain transparent data, accessible to law enforcement at all times, to prevent systematic disappearances from ever happening again. The investigation exposed the staggering political influence of industry giants like Atong. Their ability to recruit former high-ranking officials and maintain direct access to security apparatuses suggests the existence of a state within a state. It revealed a shadow network capable of operating well beyond the reach of standard legal boundaries, protected by wealth and high-level connections. As we move through late 2025 and into early 2026, the case of the missing Sabungeros has reached an unprecedented breaking point. After years of agonizing uncertainty, the wall of silence has finally begun to crumble, thanks to breakthroughs in forensic technology and the emergence of a high-stakes whistleblower. In early 2025, a key witness emerged, identified as Totoi Julie Patadongan. He is a former security officer at one of the clandestine arenas, came forward with a chilling confession. He detailed a systematic process where victims were subjected to extreme physical coercion before terminal measures were taken. According to his testimony, the remains were strategically disposed of in Lake Taal, using weighted sandbags to ensure they would never surface. He further revealed the existence of black sites, remote, isolated facilities where victims were held for days and interrogated about their alleged cheating networks before they were erased permanently. Most importantly, this witness provided audio recordings that proved direct coordination between arena security and rogue officials. These recordings detail the logistics of securing a clear path for the vehicles transporting the victims away from the arenas, ensuring they were never intercepted by legitimate law enforcement. This was the moment when long-standing conspiracy theories transformed into an undeniable, grim reality. The focus of the investigation shifted to Lake Taal following credible reports of clandestine disposal activities occurring under the cover of darkness during the pandemic lockdowns. The 2025 revelation. In June 2025, a suspect in custody provided a statement that sent shockwaves through the nation. They alleged that the scale of the tragedy was far greater than initially feared, claiming that nearly 100 individuals may have been neutralized and disposed of within the lake's depths, a number far exceeding the original list of 34 missing men. The perpetrators chose Lake Taal with cold, calculated precision. As the caldera of an active volcano, the lake reaches depths of up to 160 meters. Its slightly acidic waters and thick layers of volcanic sediment were believed to be the perfect environment to rapidly break down biological traces and erase all physical evidence. The syndicates operated under the assumption that the lake would be a permanent tomb, keeping its secrets forever. However, they underestimated the power of modern forensic technology. The breakthrough in the case came not through a confession, but through the application of advanced deep-water technology and forensic science. The investigation team deployed remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, underwater drones equipped with side-scan sonar. These drones were capable of detecting anomalies deep beneath the volcanic silt, mapping out objects that had been hidden for years. The ROVs discovered industrial-grade sacks tethered to heavy cement blocks. The use of these construction materials provides chilling evidence of a premeditated and highly organized operation, proving these were not random acts of violence, but a calculated effort to ensure the evidence remained at the bottom of the lake. Despite the corrosive nature of the volcanic water, the near-zero oxygen levels at extreme depths acted as a preservative for certain skeletal structures. This rare environmental condition allowed forensic experts to successfully extract viable DNA samples from bone and dental remains. Upon examining the recovered remains, forensic specialists identified fractures consistent with high-velocity projectiles or specialized tactical equipment. This physical evidence confirms that the victims were subjected to extreme force before their clandestine disposal. By November 2025, the ongoing recovery efforts in Lake Taal led to the discovery of dozens of skeletal remains, with 57 individuals identified in the latest sweep alone. As of January 2026, the Philippine National Forensic Laboratory has successfully matched the DNA profiles of 4 sets of remains to families of the men who vanished in 2021. This provides the first definitive, physical confirmation of their fate, closing a chapter of uncertainty and opening a new one of criminal accountability. This is the apex of the ongoing legal drama, a high-stakes collision between the power of immense wealth and the desperate cry for justice from the marginalized. The legal spotlight has now shifted toward the intellectual masterminds behind the operation. For the first time, the biggest names in the Philippine gambling industry are being forcibly summoned by the courts. The legal battle centers on a chilling question: were these disappearances a direct order for a coordinated industry-wide purge to protect profits, or were they the result of security teams overstepping their authority? The Philippine government now finds itself under intense international scrutiny. Global human rights organizations are watching closely, pressuring the administration to prove that no individual, regardless of their wealth or political connections, is above the law. As the 2026 trials begin, the nation waits to see if the scales of justice will finally balance, or if the influence of the gambling titans will once again prove untouchable. As we move into early 2026, the name Charlie Atong remains at the absolute center of this storm. As the owner of Lucky 8 Star Quest, the largest e-Sabong operator in the Philippines, his influence is nearly unparalleled, reaching into the highest echelons of both business and politics. Prosecutors are now working to build a case centered on command responsibility. They seek to prove that the directives to neutralize suspected tie-up or game fixers did not originate from rogue elements, but were issued from the top-tier management structure as a brutal form of business protection. The theory suggests that in an industry worth billions, the victims were viewed as liabilities that needed to be permanently removed from the balance sheet. On the other side, the tycoon's legal team has maintained a firm stance of plausible deniability. They argue that their client had no knowledge of the actions taken by rogue security personnel on the ground. According to the defense, the disappearances were the result of a violent turf war between small-scale syndicates, a conflict they claim had absolutely no connection to the arena's official management. What sets the 2026 proceedings apart from previous years is the sudden recovery of security logbooks and digital communication records that were once thought to be lost or destroyed. Cyberforensic investigators have successfully restored encrypted messages sent on the specific nights the victims vanished. These messages contained highly specific instructions regarding the targets marked for extraction. In a shocking turn of events, a former confidant of the tycoon has turned state witness. Seeking entry into the witness protection program, this insider has provided first-hand testimony regarding clandestine meetings where blacklists of suspected game fixers were allegedly finalized. The GPS trail. Investigators have also secured a digital footprint that is nearly impossible to refute, GPS coordinates from the mobile devices of rogue officers. This data places several key suspects directly at the locations of the disappearances during the exact hours the events took place. The 2026 trials are not merely taking place within the four walls of a courtroom, they are being conducted under the intense scrutiny of international human rights organizations. A test for the legal system. For the public, this trial is a litmus test for the Philippine justice system. It poses a fundamental question: can the law truly hold the ultra-wealthy and the politically connected accountable? The proceedings are fraught with high tension. Credible threats against key witnesses and the families of the victims have cast a shadow over the court, making the act of testifying a dangerous pursuit for the truth. The current status, the untouchables. Despite the mounting evidence, the top-tier figures, including Atong and other major e-Sabong operators, have yet to face imprisonment for the abductions. To date, these industry giants remain in a state of legal limbo. They are primarily being treated as witnesses in ongoing confrontations or are under deep investigation for secondary crimes, such as high-level money laundering related to gambling revenues. While they face massive civil lawsuits from the victims' families, criminal convictions for direct involvement remain elusive. Their elite legal teams have been highly successful in exploiting the "no body, no case" doctrine, systematically dismantling allegations of ordered eliminations due to the lack of physical remains. In the eyes of the law, as of early 2026, the masterminds remain free, while the families are left waiting for a breakthrough that may never come. While the industry tycoons remain shielded by their legal teams, the foot soldiers on the ground, the rogue officers involved, have finally begun to face the consequences of their actions. In January 2026, several police officers implicated in the Ricardo Lasco case were officially dishonorably discharged from the Philippine National Police. 3 key police officers have entered the arraignment stage, facing potential life imprisonment. However, they remain silent regarding who gave the orders and where the victims' remains were disposed of. Under the relentless scrutiny of international human rights organizations, the Philippine Department of Justice, DOJ, is now under immense pressure to operate with total transparency. This tension reached a boiling point in January 2026, when the presiding judge issued a stern warning, declaring that financial power must never stand above the rule of law. Despite this, the quest to expose the intellectual masterminds continues to hit a formidable wall. While the DOJ has officially acknowledged the existence of a systemic conspiracy, the investigation has been crippled by a series of strategic disappearances. Several key officers linked to the case vanished into hiding, becoming fugitives just moments before they were scheduled to provide critical testimony. This has left a gaping hole in the investigation, leaving the ultimate question unanswered: who, at the highest levels of power, actually gave the final order? The case of the missing Sabungeros serves as a chilling reminder of a dark world hidden in plain sight, a world where a simple game can turn into a deadly trap. While some bodies have been found, dozens more remain lost in the silence of the depths. We may now know how they vanished, but the shadow of the mastermind still looms large. In a game where the stakes were lives, it seems the house is still trying to win. Until the last name is found, this story remains unfinished. And with that, we close the book on another chilling tale from the shadows of Asia. Remember, sometimes the most terrifying monsters aren't the ones in folklore, but the ones walking among us, or even the ones lurking in the quiet corners of our own minds. The world is full of unimaginable horrors and unbelievable crimes, and Asia, with its deep history and vibrant present, has more than its fair share. If you made it this far, you've got a strong stomach. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and join us next time for another journey into the unsettling. Until then, keep your doors locked, and trust no one. Especially not what you think you saw in your peripheral vision just now. Stay safe out there, or try to.